Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at tutorial number 3 in our 2023 December Advent Calendar. Now for today's tutorial, we're going to be covering this cute little flower farm that we made. It is in this very basic little structure, and it has a very nice azalea flowering and leaf roof. Now, just 2 days ago, we went over a too tall flower farm design, and I figured, why not go ahead and cover a normal flower farm design, because you can get a lot more different flowers and dye variations from a farm like this than the farm that I showed you guys just the other day. Now, in terms of results from this farm, every 5 minutes you will get not 2, but just about 3 chests worth of flowers. Now, of course, this farm is somewhat luck-based. Every piece of bone meal will give a different amount of flowers, but we have optimized it to the best that we possibly can, so you are getting the most for each piece of bone meal. Now, the types of flowers that you can put inside of this farm are right here inside of my inventory. You've got all the different types of tulips, the allium, poppies, dandelions, cornflowers, and blue orchids. And then we have the oxeye daisy, the azure bluette, and lily of the valley. Looking over here in our nature tab, we go to flowers. These are just all the flowers that you can put in there. Then we, of course, have these 2 tall ones. And like I showed the other day with the pitcher's pod, you cannot put in flowers such as the wither rose and or torch flower, because you cannot actually bone meal these. There is a torch flower. I am spamming as hard as I possibly can in the bone meal. Can't do that. And for the wither rose, again, you can't actually bone meal that. So, yeah. Do not try and using those. Now, if you are interested in pink petals, I have not actually tried these in this farm, but I can assure you it's not going to work as you would hope, because pink petals, when you're bone mealing them, they just generate off of that one block. The way this farm is set up, that one block where you would be putting these is right under there. That is where you would switch out your flowers, so you'd have to break into there to actually change it. So you can't actually put pink petals in the farm, because that one block where you change out the flower is where all the extra pink petals that you're generating would go, and this farm doesn't actually collect anything off of that block because of the way it's set up. You don't need to. So don't bother trying to put pink petals in this farm. It's not going to work. Now, of course, let's go ahead and take a little rundown on how this farm works. So back here, there is a little bit of a clock that we activate with this lever. If we go ahead and dig into the ground a little bit, I can show off a little bit of this clock. This right here, these 3 blocks, this area right here, this is where the actual clock is. Now, off of each side of this clock goes a redstone output. And when this isn't actually flicked on, this lever, there's only an output on one side at a time, so that the pistons are pushing the grass back and forth. You don't just end up both pistons pushing at the same time, because that wouldn't actually do anything. Now, when these pistons are pushing, they're moving these 3 rows and these 3 rows. We cannot move the middle row, because the middle row is where the flower is, of course. So if you were to push the grass along, you would just break that flower and it wouldn't work. That is why in the middle we have these 6 pistons that push downwards. So on one side of our clock, one side of the pistons being pushed, there is a line of redstone that comes up on top of these pistons, pushing them down and or letting them go up. And that redstone in the middle is also what powers the dropper and dispenser, which is bone mealing the flower, generating you more. Now, don't try and make this farm any bigger than the 7x7 that it is set up to be, because from testing, when you bone meal that flower in the middle, it will only expand into a 7x7 range. It will not go any farther. Henceforth, making the farm any bigger would not help your results. It would just make it more difficult to set up. And if you are wondering why that flower is in the ground, we can come on over here, get out a little bit of bone meal, and I will show you why that flower is in the farm. So this is a normal red tulip when we bone meal it. Bone mealing it there, you see that took a lot of bone meal just to get this little setup here. And if we just do 1 piece of bone meal, we got 4 extra flowers. However, if we come over here, go down to the ground by 1, and now bone meal it, look at how many we got from a singular piece of bone meal. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18. Almost 20 flowers. That is 14 more flowers than we got from a singular piece of bone meal set up over here. So that is why the flower is sunk down into the ground a little bit. If you were wondering, it just gives so much better results. Leaving it up in the air would honestly just be wasting bone meal, and it wouldn't be making anything easier for you, the player. So, before we go ahead and start actually constructing this farm, if you are interested in following along and building it with me, these are all the materials that I use to build this little farm sitting right here. So if you plan to follow along, you should go ahead, pause the video right now, and collect every single one of these. Alright everybody, now that you've gotten all your materials gathered, it's time to dig a little bit of a hole. So, we are going to need to actually dig out this hole right here to construct this farm. Now, I'm just checking to make sure that mine is actually the right size. Do note that while we continue, we will be making little bits of extensions to this hole in certain places to actually fit in a little bit more redstone, but this is just the base for what we're going to need to construct. So, just like the other farm that we built recently, we're going to be doing this by layers. So, for our first layer, we're going to be setting up our minecart rail, installing our chest, and our hoppers. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, first of all, we are going to need to install all of our hoppers. Remove all these blocks, put in our chest, have 2 hoppers coming out the back like this. Now on the left side here, we're going to come out by 2, and then here we're going to come out by 3. That is because right here is actually where a redstone block needs to go, and we're going to need to put another one there as well. Now on the right side, go ahead and put in your 6 hoppers, and that is going to be your hopper and chest setup. Now all of the redstone blocks, we're going to install one on each, just making a mess here. We're going to install one on each side of the center block, and then one in each corner, just like this. You should end up with a pattern on your floor looking just like this is right now. Go ahead and grab your powered rails. We're going to start on the left-hand side over here. We're going to do 1, come all the way down with normal rails, do a loop. We're also going to need redstone blocks in these 2 locations. We're going to put a powered rail there, come all the way up with normal rails, do our loop, another powered rail, normal rails, just like so, and then a powered rail there. Here you can put in a hopper minecart, and as you can see, it is just like a small track for half of the farm. We're using the center block as the bumper for our minecarts. Now we're going to go ahead and do it for the right-hand side of the farm. Powered rail, normal rails all the way down, do our loop, add a powered rail, fill in more normal rails, power rail, normal rails, and finally powered rail. Put in our hopper minecart, and now we have 2 hopper minecarts bouncing back and forth on their own half of a track. Now we're going to go ahead and remove these 10 blocks right here, and we're going to come out yet again by another row. Because, again, if we're doing this by layers, we have to work on adding in little bits of redstone as we go. So down here on this layer, we need a block to put our redstone on in these locations, a redstone dust here, and a redstone torch on this side of it. This is going to be the start of the clock that we use to power all of our pistons. Also, I would recommend removing just all of these blocks along the side, because that will probably end up coming in useful, just space to actually construct and build things in. Now, next up, it is time to go ahead and install our pistons, our redstone, and different bits like that. So here, we just added in this little section. We're also actually going to need a green piece of wool, just a little bit darker of a thing. So this center block is going to be where our flower goes. So in each direction, come out by 3 from that main block, and you should cover every single bit of minecart track that we have put down, and then go ahead and fill it in. You're going to end up with a 7 by 7 area completely covered with grass. And of course, if you want, you could use dirt and stuff like that, but grass just generally looks nicer in my opinion. So there we go, we have the grass now all filled in. Now on each side of our farm where the pistons would go, we're actually going to come out by another row of blocks, just like so. Make sure that you have ample amount of room for our redstone. And then we're also going to remove these little 2x3 areas of blocks right here. However, right here, I'm going to add a yellow piece of wool just as a marker so that we know that is a block for a minecart. I'm going to add another one there, just so that we know these are blocks that minecarts are bouncing off of and we don't accidentally break them. Now here, we're going to need some pistons on each side. Now, on the left-hand side, right here, the left-hand side, I set this up with them being a block away. So they're a block away from our minecart track. And on this side, we can add in 6 temporary blocks and then put in our 6 pistons right up next to the grass that we just placed in. Now, grabbing our yellow wool, we're going to come all the way across the back like that. On the right-hand side, we're going to go 1, 2, and 3 right here. And we're going to add a block up right there, there, and there. Oh, sorry, in there. 4 locations like this. And then in one of these, I have a dark green piece of wool. You could also use moss because that is where the lever is going to go to make sure that this actually turns off. Now, right here is a repeater, and right here is a repeater. Neither one of them have any ticks changed on them. Then right here in the middle, we need a repeater going that way on 1 tick delay. And if you flick this, the middle is a ticking clock with the repeaters on either side lighting up. Now, over here on this side, where the pistons are flush against this dirt on the background, we need to go out by a whole nother block because we got to make room for that redstone. And on this side, you can just go ahead and fill in your redstone dust already. Over here, we're going to put a dark green piece of wool in between. We're going to need that redstone to be able to come up and access our pistons. And then back here, we're going to fill in 7 wool, put in 7 pieces of redstone dust. Right here, we're going to add our 4 blocks. This one is already there because it's a marker for that end of the minecart hopper track. And then we can put in 4 more pieces of redstone dust. Now, whenever we flick this lever, all of your dirt should go back and forth, except for these middle blocks right there. Now, before we continue any further, if you already have a flower in mind to put in this farm, you can go ahead and put that in there. And now we're going to need our dispenser. So let's go ahead, add a dispenser upside down right here. And this dispenser is going to have a bunch of our bone meal in it. Now let's go ahead and put that piston back because that's just, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it's going to be whenever you have to change out a flower. Now here we're also going to be starting to add in some decorations. So 3 blocks away from each one of these is where the dirt goes for things to spawn on for flowers. So on that 4th block, we're going to start putting in some decorational blocks. As you can see here, I am using the stripped spruce wood. Right here, actually, I'm going to grab a temporary block, just so that they're all going the same direction. It really annoys me when I'm building something and that one piece of wood is going a different direction than the rest. And then, of course, here, I'm going to add in some more temporary blocks just to fill this in. And I do recommend that you actually have these as temporary blocks, because if you leave them in, it could end up messing up the functionality of the redstone inside of this farm. Coming on over here, filling in these blocks, removing the temporary ones. We now end up with something this shape. Now, before we go ahead and add this in, we're going to put down an upside down stair. To be honest, you probably don't need this, but this is the way I constructed it. Why? I don't know, don't ask me. I just thought it looked nice, so I put it in there. And we're also going to add in our spruce trapdoor so that we have access to our chest. Now, around all of this, to actually hide it and make it look good, we're going to add in a bunch of moss carpets, covering each end like this, and then coming out by an additional 2. Also, we're actually going to fill in these corners. I don't know why I didn't do that before, but corners are now actually filled in as well. And now we're just going to go around and add in all of the moss carpets. Now this spot where the green wool is, there's not going to be a carpet because there will end up being redstone dust in that location. And then we're also going to have a second layer of carpets going around like this, because pretty much the way it should end up on a corner is it looks like there's 3 pieces missing. So it's like a bit of a transition phase right there. And by adding in this carpet, we allow for the redstone to still function properly while adding some decoration to our farm. Now, of course, in the back, we're not going to cover up the lever. The lever is, of course, needed to actually make our farm work. And in these areas here, you can just go ahead and add in some grass. For the next layer, we're going to need the mossy cobblestone walls, continuing on with our decoration phase, spruce trapdoors, a piston, and a dropper. Now, unfortunately, we are going to end up messing with the redstone a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to break that. This way these pistons don't actually push the dirt when I break it. So that's a nice handy little trick if you're building this and you want to prevent the dirt from moving. Now these are all going to be temporary blocks because on these 3 and these 3 we need pistons facing downwards, and here in the middle we need a dropper facing downwards into the dispenser. Once those blocks are in place, we can remove the temporary ones, put back all of our grass, fix up our redstone circuits and the border around, and then of course fix the moss and stuff. Now, let's cover up all of these with some spruce trapdoors on the sides, just like this. And then on the side where there isn't the dark green wool, we're going to add a spruce trapdoor on the end. Now, you can't do that on this end because it's going to be redstone going up the side, and we can actually just go ahead and install that redstone right now. On this block, we're going to have a repeater on 2 ticks, and then we can put in the rest of our redstone. And then let's go ahead and do our mossy cobblestone walls. In each corner, we're doing a little pattern like this. And that is going to just be the base for the fence posts that we're going to be adding in. Oh, and I'm actually sorry, I had this backward. I don't know how I got that wrong. But the repeater on 2 ticks is wanted there. Now that we've actually made that quick change, sorry about that, we can go ahead and put a fence post on top of each one of these mossy cobblestone walls. That would be that layer complete. For the next layer, we're just adding another fence post on each one of these walls. And then you might want to go ahead and grab out your leaves because we're starting with a few of the leaves on this layer, but not very many. So there are the fence posts put in. We can grab out our azalea leaves. We're going to put 1 in that back corner like that. In the very center here, we've got 1. Over here, we have a flowering azalea leaf between these 2 fence posts, 2 coming off of there, and then 1 in each of these locations. We have another azalea leaf there, and we have 1 right there. So you can go ahead and copy those leaves in, and then we can go ahead and do the next layer. I'm going to go ahead and grab out my spruce fence gate. Now on this layer, we are adding in more fence posts on every single one of the established fence post pillars that we already have in place. Just go ahead and top those off. And now grabbing our spruce fence gate, we're going to be filling in these 2 locations in every single corner. So we can go ahead and start filling those in, get some of the frame connecting at the top. The rest of the frame will be finished on the following layer. And then, of course, we can continue on with the leaves. So over here, we're going to have 2 more leaves in these locations. A flowering azalea leaf there next to a normal leaf. Temporary block there because we need a leaf there. Over here, we have a normal leaf, a flowering leaf, and then another normal leaf. On this end, we have a normal, a flowering, 2 normal, and then another normal there, along with a normal in the center. Just go ahead and set it to day real quick. Then we can put a temporary block there with another normal leaf here. And then these two blocks, we have normal leaves. Here, we have a flowering azalea leaf, a normal leaf. In the middle 3 blocks here, we have 3 normal leaves, like that. A normal leaf there. And then over here, we have a flowering, 2 normals. And in the back, we have a normal, a flowering, a normal. And then right here, we can finish this off with flowering in those 2 locations and a normal in those 2. And this is going to be the pattern for the leaves in place. You can go ahead and make sure you have all of those copied in. For the next layer, we're going to finish off the frame. We're going to come up with a fence post in these 2 locations on each side of your build. And then we're going to connect them with 3 spruce fence gates in the middle. And in some locations, you can just place the fence gates on the leaves, making this really easy. Now that is going to be it for our fencing materials and whatnot. You can go ahead and put those away. Now the next few layers are just going to be adding on the rest of the leaves. Now on this layer, we're going to be starting to get that rounded shape. So we can add 3 normals right there. Add a temporary there with a normal in this location. Next to it, another normal, then a flowering, a normal, and a flowering there. A normal here and a normal here, so you get that little corner shape once again. From there, flowering, normal, normal, flowering, flowering. Then right here, fill in this little corner shape with 3 normals once again. Now in this corner, I forgot last layer, add a normal leaf there. Then we're going to have a normal leaf in these 2 locations. Add in a flowering, normal, 2 flowering. And then fill in these 3 with our normal leaves once again. Add in a normal right here, accompanied by 2 flowering, 1 normal, and another flowering. Flying up, here is the shape. You can go ahead and fill this in, make sure you got it right. We're really starting to get down that curvature of the canopy. Now on this layer, starting back up in the left corner once again, we can do a 1, 2, 3 sort of shape out of the normal leaves. We kind of get a diagonal shape right there. And then across that, we end up with 3 flowering. And then we'll add another regular there. And of course, this kind of becomes whatever you want it to be. You can just start placing in things at random. And to be honest, in this tutorial, where I'm putting the leaves probably is not going to be perfect to where they were in what you saw earlier. Things just get mixed up and kind of changed while you're building, if you know what I mean. Nothing usually ends up staying perfectly the same. But here we're just going to continue with this sort of nice flowering shape. We're going to add in a flowering right there. Put a regular leaf there. Here we got that regular, put the flowering there actually. I'm sorry, I had it here. Now we're going to do, let's do 1, 2 on the regular. Add in a flowering there, another flowering there. Put a regular one there and there. And then let's go ahead and put in another flowering with a regular. Come out 2 more regulars, a regular there, a flowering there, reg there, and then let's do a reg here and a flowering there. Let's also do 2 regulars right there and a flowering there. Yeah, that looks about right. So we can go ahead and start right here. We're going to put 3 regs with a singular flowering right there. Off of this flowering, we're going to add 2 more flowering, a flowering there, and a reg there. So this is what we just added in. Now here, I'm going to add in a reg, a flowering, 2 regs, 1 flowering, and 1 reg, like that. Here, I'm going to add in 3 regulars, like this, 1, 2, 3. And I'm actually going to take this all the way across, even covering this flowering right there. So you end up with 5 regs in a row. I'm going to come down by another reg, add in 2 flowering, and another reg right there. Fill in one reg right there as well, and then fill in 3 more regular leaves in those locations, so you should end up with these 5 blocks uncovered. So now here we're doing reg, reg, flower, 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 and a reg. So that is your entire canopy covered. Go ahead and set it back to day again. It was starting to get a little dark. And that is the canopy covered. Now, before you go ahead and click off this video, there are a few more steps. We got chains, lanterns, and a few vines to add in, just to add some nice texture to the build. So let's go ahead and do our vines first. Here in the front, there are 3 vines in these locations, but of course you can only just place the one. Doesn't really matter because more are going to grow in. So I'm just placing the vine at the top, and you can just go ahead and watch and let them grow. If you have more vines, you can take these down to as low as you would like it to go. But yeah, I'm just going to add in the starting vine. Over on this side here, I'm going to add a vine here, a vine here, and a vine here. We can then go ahead and add a vine on this block, and I'm going to rotate around to the back of the build, where I'm going to add in 2 vines on these locations, 1 vine there, 2 vines there, and 1 vine there. Switching around to the final side of our build, where I've kind of got a tree in my way. Also, by the way, if you're curious about these custom trees and how to build them, tomorrow's December Advent Calendar video is going to be taking a look at how to build custom trees like these medium and large oak-sized trees here. So go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss it when it drops tomorrow. Anyway, back to the final side of our build. Let's go ahead and add in the vines. On this side, we're putting in 2 vines there, 1 here, and the final vine. Oh, it's already in, so never mind, we're good there. And that is actually going to be it for vines on this build. The final step is to add in our chains and lanterns. So if you're looking at your canopy covered flower farm from the front, like I am right here, going to this back corner, we can add in 3 chains with 1 lantern hanging from the bottom in the back right hand corner. Then in the middle here, off of this flowering azalea block, I'm going to add 4 chains with 1 lantern. And then I'm going to add in 3 chains off of this block here. And then, of course, a lantern. And finally, we're going to go ahead and do 2 chains. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3, but 2 looks right. And actually, I lied. I'm sorry. There's a few vines on the inside here, actually. We can do 1 and 2 there. And then I had 1 right here, I believe. And there was 1... Ooh. It might have been there. Yeah, let's put it there. That looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to actually randomly place a few more vines. We'll do 1 there. And how about... I think actually just leave it there. Yeah, leave it there. So, that is the tutorial for our canopy-covered automatic flower farm. Just to prove that it works, we're going to go ahead and grab out a few stacks of... No, we're just going to grab a stack of bone meal. Also, if you're wondering how this system works here, I'm going to put the bone meal in this dropper. So the way this system works is when this dropper is powered, it sends a piece of bone meal down into the dispenser, and the power also will go to the dispenser, so if there's bone meal here, it will then bone meal the flower. So this way you can get double the amount of bone meal that you would have if you only had 1 dispenser, and you don't have to have hoppers or chests. So to show you how that works, I'm going to put it in there, power this. You see the bone meal is going into our dispenser, and there you go. Now flowers are starting to pop in. I don't know why it had to get to like 5 bone meal first, but it is working. You do see that it's working. And if we go ahead and remove this carpet, we can check our storage system, and you will see that the flowers will just continue to funnel on in. Oh. Yeah, that appeared to be on 2 ticks. That's why we weren't getting as many as we should be, but now it is very consistent every single time. And if I just go ahead and remove the bone meal from that dispenser, Now you saw that every single time it had bone meal in it, it worked. We ran out, but if I put in 18 more, you never even see the bone meal in this dispenser. That's how quick and efficient this is. But it's about to run out of bone meal once again, so I'm going to go ahead and come back here, ready to turn it off. There we go, out of bone meal. But yeah, that's how this middle system works. You just get double the amount of bone meal storage than you would have normally. Now, every 1 minute of running this, you get about 1,021 flowers, I believe. On the thumbnail, as I'm sure you saw, it read 1,000, so technically that was clickbait, but in a good way, you get an extra 21 flowers. And the one issue with this farm is that storage is normally a little slow, so even though you can run it for 1 minute and get 1,000 flowers, you may want to turn it off and just sit there, or actually run in there and pick them up yourself, because while the storage is good, it tends to fall behind after like 3 minutes, so do keep that in mind while using this farm. Do remember, tomorrow there's going to be a tutorial on these custom trees if you are interested in those. And other than that, I hope you guys are really enjoying this 2023 December Advent Calendar series. I hope you're getting quite a lot of fun out of these tutorials, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hope you have a lot of fun with your flower farms. This has been Mr. Gaming Aquatic, and I'll see you next time. Peace!